So thanks for attending. Thanks for your interest. I'm going to talk about how artificial intelligence is useful to education and especially to math, based on a very specific case study, which is Smartick. It's a program I have developed, I've been working on over the last 10 years. So, I've put together very simple ideas, very simple slides. It's not technical at all. So it's not a very fancy presentation. It's very simple with clear ideas. First, let me tell you about myself. I am from Spain. I studied, I graduated from 3 different school systems in the US, in Spain, and I attended a German school in Spain, so I had all my education until I was 18 in German. Then I went to university. I studied economics, partly in Spain, partly in Germany. And then I moved on to the corporate world, mainly in investment banking, institution, and management consulting. So, I had what you could call an early successful business career, which I decided to move on into the entrepreneurial world by founding a sports marketing agency, which became the leader in Spain. Then we partnered with a UK company and was sold later, 5 years later, to a UK public listed group, which is Changemaker Group, for £48 million. After that, I started with Smartick, and there's a very simple reason for it. It's just when I had kids, my life changed dramatically. So I started worrying about education, I started reading about education, about comparing different systems, and I came with this. I just first before we move on into the subject, just very briefly, what is artificial intelligence? It is something which you read every day on the newspaper, but really nobody knows exactly what it is. It creates a lot of doubts, a lot of confusion, and nobody knows exactly what we are talking about. It's just to be very simple and very clear. Artificial intelligence studies the human behavior, trying to imitate it, and if possible, avoiding the mistakes that the humans do, and if possible, try to improve the way humans repeat certain tasks. Okay? So how did the entire thing started? As I said, when I had kids, I started worrying about education, and all I read was, for good or for bad, the only report, or one of the few reports, which allows you to compare different educational systems across the world, is the PISA report, right? So just as a summary of this, green are those countries performing well, yellow, normal, and red, they are performing poorly. So as a summary, except for Asia, here, and a few European exceptions like Finland, the Netherlands, and so on, the rest of Europe performs poorly. The US worse than Europe, and Latin America even worse. So, and this is the reality. And why is this a problem? This is a problem for several reasons. Most of future jobs, which do not exist today, will be somehow related to math. Data analysis, coding, technology, biotech, you name it, but all of them have the foundation of math. Or if you put it in a passive way, if your math is poor, all those career doors are going to be closed for you. Okay? And not only most of the jobs, of the new jobs, will be there, but most those jobs will be the most adding value jobs, which is an elegant way to say that they will be the better paid jobs. Okay? So, and that's my opinion here. We cannot afford, really, in these times, we cannot afford children not mastering math. Or let's say simply, if a child is good in math, he is going to have a brighter future. It's as simple as that. So, and it's not me saying it. It was just Mr. Andreas Schleicher. He was just giving his conference there and talking about this. PISA says many things, but they say, I summarized here in one quote. It says, every person learns differently. An educational system of one size fits all can no longer meet the needs of modern societies. Education has to be flexible enough in both the content and the way it is taught as to suit their needs, which means PISA is showing you the way on how to improve education in general and math education specifically. Education has to be more and more personalized. And what's a real, and I put this sort of a joke more in a sarcastic way, but this is a classroom 100 years ago, and that's a classroom today. What's the difference? It's basically the color, because it's one of the few sectors. If you look like traveling, online shopping, you name it, any industry has changed dramatically with the internet. School, education has moved very slow. So, in life you always have to be positive. So there's a lot of room for improvement, let's say. And it's not me saying it. If you look, you have different sources. The Economist, you have Forbes. Economists say artificial intelligence could make learning more personalized, flexible, inclusive, and engaging. And Forbes say many believes adaptive learning technology will pave the way for pedagogical renaissance. Which means we have a problem. Math performance is low. It's a critical problem that we need to solve. Technology is there. Artificial intelligence is there to help teachers, to help parents by adapting the content. And also the knowledge is out there. We need to change mentalities. The knowledge is there with the internet. You don't need to memorize things. You don't need to memorize the content. You need skills to be able to relate the content. You need these critical thinking skills, which is more and more needed. So in this sense, the role of the teacher has to evolve from transmitting knowledge, move on to be like the pilots of the classroom, supervising their students, always supported by data on their performance, on their achievements. But it's not them, the role any longer to design the exercises and to do, let's say, they have to move on from doing this work to a higher work and use technology to do these things and to help them in the classroom. And this is my personal opinion. You read a lot about technology, you read a lot about artificial intelligence. It will replace teachers, education, there's going to be a revolution. Personally, I don't believe in any of those things, really. Education needs to evolve, but it will not be a revolution, it will be an evolution. And artificial intelligence can never replace a good teacher. The passion, the illusion, whatever you name it, that a good teacher transmit to the student, a machine could never do it, never. But it can compensate for a bad teachers. All of us, we have bad teachers. At a certain point during your school life, was not a good teacher, and then you start either hating or not liking a specific subject. So in that case, no matter where you are, wherever you are, you can always have access to the highest quality education in the world through the internet and technology. So, summarizing, there's a problem, there is an opportunity, and all the solutions which I found in the market at that time were either paper-based, not using technology, or were curriculum-based, okay? So I created Smartick 10 years ago. We've been in the market for 7 years, and the mindset was create a program which is short, has a short period of time, only 15 minutes a day, ideally every day or at least 5 times a week, for kids 4 to 14. Why? Because anything you find in the market is more oriented towards secondary school, but there's nothing for primary. And one of the things that the PISA report says is that you have to put the remedy, or you have to act before, not when the kids are 15, 16. Obviously there's always a solution, but the earlier you start, the better math foundation you will have. This is like the Tetris. Remember, you start leaving gaps, and comes to a point that the building, you cannot build on top of it anymore, and then the building falls down. So Smartick is based on artificial intelligence, which, I try to draw on this slide in a very simple way. Smartick, what it does is two areas. We are very good in the diagnosis and in the content. What do we do in the diagnosis? And this is based on figures we've been collecting for almost 10 years. Between the best student in the class and the worst student in the class, within the same classroom, children, they have attended the same school. They have the same teachers, and so on. There is a difference of 2 school years. So what is the reality? You have an official program which tells you that because he's 10 years old and we are in March, this week or this month we have to be teaching this and we have to do this. But the reality shows that there are kids that what you did in November, they didn't really understand it that well or they don't master it. And you have within the same classroom children that are capable of doing what they're supposed to do in May or in May 2020. So it makes sense for us to run a let's say we are agnostic to the year, to the age and the school year of the student. Why? Because this is the reality. I mean, we let the student show us what he can and what he cannot do. Okay? So we put a lot of emphasis and we are good in the diagnosis stage. This is it's more technical, Bayesian network, Bayesian inference, and so on. But the process is basically we run an entry-level test from the basis, just identifying those areas where the student answer either slow or incorrectly. From there on, we design a very specific, personalized, and unique study program for each child. And from there on, we move on to the content. They do a daily session of 15 minutes, which we go, artificial intelligence allows you to go much further than that, than designing a specific personalized study program. It allows you to adapt the content, it allows you to create the content on real time. And by saying so, I mean the student answers the exercise. We measure from 20 to 50 data points on each answer, like speed of resolution, if it's correct, if it's incorrect. Depending on the content, he has to answer correctly 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And depending on how he scores on these different variables, we give immediate feedback and we create the next exercise. And this happens in less than 1 second. Okay? And we also put a lot of emphasis on the content. Why? Because children need to move on from pure mental calculation and arithmetic to developing these critical thinking skills, these logic and reasoning skills. So we put a lot of emphasis on reading comprehension, word problems. There's a specific module on logic and reasoning without any numerical calculation. It's just kids have to relate different ideas. And there's also a specific module on coding. Kids learn how to code. Like once every 4 math session, they get a different one, either logic or coding. Okay? The results are, we have tested. We've been using it for years with thousands of students. On a daily basis, over 1 million problems get solved, which help us analyze all the data, keep on fine-tuning the study program. And it can be both. It can be used either at home or at school. I just put an example of a school in Spain. In Madrid, we have, in Spain, we have a test for 6th graders, which is an official standardized test that all schools have to pass it. And this school started using this artificial program for math in 2012, while they were scoring 5.59 out of 10 in this official exam. And they move on to score 9.77, being number 1. That's a public school. They had a lot of immigrants in a bad neighborhood. So the program, it makes sense, and it works. try not to be very technical, but from an educational point of view, what does artificial intelligence do? It identifies the potential of each student, no matter if it's here, if it's here, if it's here, whatever it is. And it makes the student work as close as possible to his maximum capacity, always a little bit below. Why? Because, there are many studies on this, but, and it happens in many areas, but it's specifically severe in math, which is called the positive reinforcement. Kids who do not, who are not able to solve the exercises, they tend to think that they are less capable than the others. And not only them, the others tend to think that this specific student is less capable. So what artificial intelligence does is it knows exactly where your limit is, and it makes you work as close as possible, but always a little bit below, so that most of the answers are always answered correctly. It is used in over 100 countries. Over 500,000 students have registered in the past years. Mainly, it is present in Spain, US, Mexico, Colombia, UK, and South Africa. It has a lot of recognitions from the community. We worked closely with the MIT to develop the international strategy. We also got recently a case study was published by Harvard for the MBA students. They studied Smartick as a successful case study. There's a few. I was awarded Eisenhower Fellow less than a year ago. There's a few recognitions which proves that this is a solid approach to teach math. And as a conclusion from this short session, obviously I'm working with technology, but and I'm seeing the results on a daily basis. And I know it's different. I don't know how many teachers are in the room, but it's probably different from the other side. But what I see is that teachers, institutions, they are still afraid to innovate. So my advice is don't be afraid. Innovate. Technology is there, and it's good. Results are there. So, don't be afraid to innovate. And I say this, but on the other hand, I also say technology as such doesn't add any value. It's the way you use the technology. I've seen so many cases of schools just, buying very expensive equipment like tablet, you name it. And then they just replicate what they do on paper, they replicate it on digital. For me, it doesn't add any value at all. It makes sense if you introduce personalized methodologies, if you use it to, specifically to motivate a child and get the most out of it. So, as general, technology, it's not a question of buying expensive equipment or introducing technology. It's the way you use it. That's the key. And again, that's something which happens in life, in any area. So the sooner the children learn this, the better. And technology, as I say, is not everything. Without effort, your talent is nothing more than unmet potential, which says Angela Duckworth. Which means, they can give you the greatest technology, they can give you the greatest program, but you have to work. You have to make an effort, you need to have habits, you need to have routines, and so on. And just as a summary, we need to move on and have our students develop these critical thinking skills. And, knowledge is there. In my generation, in my generation, you went out of college, and that was probably 90% of what you learned in your entire life. It was already learned. Now, we need to work on developing this learning mindset, lifelong mindset. So the sooner kids develop these critical thinking skills, and they realize that they will keep on learning their entire life, the better. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free.
My name is Malih.
It was too high.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Malih. I am the CEO of Young Leaders Development Program. Is this application can be customized? For example, if you wanted to include emotional intelligence skills or social intelligence skills or positive intelligence skills, can be customized.
Theoretically, yes. What it is today, it's math with a high component of coding, reading comprehension, and logic. But it's technology, so anything can be done. It's a question of having a good content, well structured, and programming it.
Program it. Okay. Thanks.
Hello, I've got a question about the program. What is the role of the teacher when using the program? Because somehow I missed it probably. Is it something that that should help the teacher during the work in the classroom? But is it something that also provides the explanation of some new things to the student, or is it just for practicing and for providing the suitable difficulty level exercises for the pupils?
Well, the role of the teacher is, the teacher is the leader of the class, and this is a tool for them to help them with the diversity of the class. So instead of having to design specific exercises for each student, this is a way that each one trains according to their learning space and skills. But apart from that, I haven't talked about the product as such. I want to talk more about the role of, or about the benefits of introducing artificial intelligence and the benefits of introducing well-thought technology. But obviously the program has tutorials, interactive tutorials. It's gamified with, students gain stars. It's really engaging for students. And as I said, if you use it at home, the kid doesn't need the supervision of the parents. If you use it at school, the teacher just follows up and gets all the results, the data, the time they have spent. They get all type of data. They can see exactly what they have answered to each exercise. So it's very well designed.
My name is Harun. I was a teacher first, and now I run an EdTech company, and we're working on something similar. Now, in many ways, the role of artificial intelligence is similar to a very hyper-aware teacher in a classroom, because he or she notices all the signs that the child is exhibiting and then sort of responding to those signs to see what the actual learning level of the child is. In your platform, you mentioned that you use certain metrics to see if the child is struggling, whether he's slow in responding to the questions, whether he's doing them right or wrong. Could you talk about all the other kinds of data that you would want to capture in the sense of giving your platform as true of an indication of a child's learning level as a hyper-aware teacher in a classroom would see?
Well, what is the reality? The reality, if you're a teacher, you have 25 kids in the classroom, you're a human being, so you do what you can possibly do, which is, you have your limits, and you work hard, and you do a lot. But it's impossible for you, first, to run this diagnosis, to know exactly where each child is. Because many times the gaps are not from the previous month or the previous month, it's maybe from years that there are some weakness points. So for a teacher, it's impossible to identify those. And then even if it would be possible to create a set of exercises on a daily basis specifically for each student would be impossible. And to adapt this from 1 second to the other, for 25 kids, it's very difficult. So,
no, my question is, what is your platform like? You said you notice if a child is slow in responding to a question on your platform, whether he does it right or wrong on your platform. These become numbers and metrics that feed the algorithms that then define how your platform is modifying itself. What else do you note about a child when you're making these decisions or when you're feeding that data? What other kind of data do you feed your algorithms?
We measure, so many things. The speed, the way they interact with the platform. I mean, we measure from the behavior point of view, the way they are responding, the type of content they're responding. We know their entire history, so we know the way they learn, specifically each one of them. We also, we all tend to think we are all different, and we are different. But when you put together millions of data, there are some common behaviors. So we are not only able to adapt the content depending on how the child is performing, but we are also able to anticipate and forecast what's the optimal path for this specific student, because thousands of kids have gone through the same path before. Apart from that, we measure, what is he doing with the mouse, not only content-wise, but usability aspects too. So just to give you a rough idea, every 5 weeks, we upload a new version with new content, improvement in the algorithm, and so we incorporate, basically what technology allows you is to take the best out of all the global methodologies, analyze it, and then incorporate those which make sense, because you can use many algorithms to teach the same concept, like the sum, for example. You can sum horizontally, vertically, you can use the Singapore bars, you can use the abacus, so we incorporate constantly new ways of teaching the same concept, because at the end of the day, the child doesn't memorize one way of doing things. What you are doing is designing these skills that he needs, these logic and reasoning skills and these critical thinking skills. So, we are constantly analyzing and constantly improving and feeding the algorithm. Any more questions? Okay, so thank you very much for your patience and interest. Thank you.